Welcome to the Bad Roman Podcast. On this show, we talk with veterans, community leaders, Christians and non-Christians as we explore the entanglement of Christians with the state. The Bad Roman Project was created out of the firm belief that as Christians, we are called to follow Christ, not the state. Here is your host, Craig Hargis.
Hey folks, Elaina Wang joins me today, and she has a fascinating story about being a morbidly obese child and how she survived a 15-year addiction to meth. She has used all of her experiences to become addicted to her own health and being completely intentional about it, and she does not hold back when it comes to these discussions, and I find her very impressive, and I think y'all will as well.
Let's go. Yeah. Left, right, left, right, left. We got our marching orders, man. Left, right, right. Would you rather serve God than serve Caesar, you feel me? Right. I'm just trying to live what he said. I'm just trying to.
Elaina, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here talking to you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I think it's amazing.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to have you as well. I found you through Copperhead Hill Farms, and I got to follow your page, and I was like, this lady's hardcore. She does not hold back. She's very, very in your face about what she believes, and she's not gonna pull any punches. And I'm always impressed by people like that because. And I don't think you're doing it. I know you're not doing it out of to be mean. You're just you've got the experience, and you're like this is what can happen to you, but I got a better way out. I can show you a better way out, and I think that's very important. But Copperhead Hill Farms, he's kind of on the same line as you are when it comes to being hardcore. You said it before we started recording. You never know who you're talking to from Copperhead Hill Farms, so we're going to talk about them behind their back a little bit.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like Copperhead Hill Farm, shout out to y'all. Y'all are amazing. So I'm not even sure how we ended up connected on Facebook, Copperhead Hill Farms and I, but we ended up having a few interactions back and forth that were just like hilarious. And then I had drug my bestie Liz into a few of the conversations, and I'm like, I really like these guys. I think I even invited them. I was like, you guys need to come to Hack Your Health because, even if they're not like, because my page is Keto Wang and it is very keto focused, but I've grown beyond that. And, I understand not everybody in the world has to be keto, and that's okay. And I'm like, you guys would fit in perfectly. Like, we believe in the farming. We believe in the raw milk. We believe in real food. We all have the same belief system. So,
well, it sounds like you just called them out. So they have no choice now because I guarantee you he's going to listen to this show.
Yeah, well, I hope you show up because it would be amazing.
Yeah, you have no choice now, Mr. Copperhead.
Find somebody to take care of the farm.
Well, the reasons I wanted to get you on today is, like I said, you're fascinating, and I really appreciate the work you're doing. But the addiction side of it is something that I want to keep going to talk about this on this show because of what happened to my brother TJ back in 2020. And a lot of most people who listen to the show are going to be familiar with that story. My friends are familiar, obviously. But so whenever I can get the opportunity to talk to somebody who has worked their way out of addiction, I think it's important to let people know that you can get out of this. You can find your way out of this. And a story after we published the first episode about TJ after he passed away, which was very difficult to get through, but we had messages from people saying that they were able to share that show with somebody they knew that was addicted, and it brought them out of addiction because it could end up ending your life at some point. Before we get too far into that, I'd like to get some background from you. Just let folks know whatever you want people to know about you. Then we'll just get into the topic. We're also going to talk about being intentional about your health as the show goes on as well. So whatever you want us to know about you, let us have it, and then we'll get into it.
I'm Elaina. I am 40 years old currently. I have been on a journey of health, wellness, and sobriety for about a decade now. So my childhood comes from obviously a lot of childhood trauma and morbid obesity. So like at 40 years old, I'm smaller and healthier than I was at 10 years old. A lot of chronic illness and in and out of the hospital as a young child. And, that really ended up leading me to, obviously addiction and trauma goes hand in hand, but I think the big kicker for me was when I tried the meth. I had energy. Well, when you're a morbidly obese, sick child, you don't have all of that childhood energy that most kids feel. You're basically struggling to even go to school. I actually didn't complete school. My mom had to pull me out because I couldn't meet the attendance requirements. And then they implemented the new laws and the Becca bill. And, obviously, no parent needs to go to jail because their child is so sick. And so in my teen years, when I was given meth for the first time, I felt that rush of energy. And that's where really the addiction stemmed from. And I went all out for 15 years. So from 15 years old, when I first tried it, to 30 was filled with party, 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 all the substances, all the alcohol, just flat out craziness. Now, one key factor here was because I was so sick when I was a kid, and I was probably type 2 diabetic, I would say, before I was like 12 years old. And when I would do drugs and then come down, I would binge eat sugar. So as my addiction played on over the years, instead of turning into one of those skinny, little tweaker people that you see that you associate with methamphetamines, I was getting bigger and fatter. And I was over 200 pounds at the height of my addiction. So yeah, decided at 30, that's when it all started, the journey to getting clean and stuff.
So what happened at 30? So, I mean, because that's 15 years is a long time, especially for a drug like methamphetamine. I've never done it, so I don't know, but I know people that have been on it. I know people have gone to prison for it. But it seems like a drug that can end your life pretty quickly. Where with alcohol, it can take a little bit longer. It's going to shorten your life over a longer period of time, unless you do something like my brother TJ did, was when he went into isolation in 2020 during the COVID stuff, and he bought into it and would not come out of his house. He was barking at people for not wearing masks and all this stuff. But it gave him, and this happened, when he died, my mom found him in August of 2020, and all that started in March of 2020. So in just an 8-month span, 6 to 8 month span, he wouldn't go back to work because he was terrified. They offered him his job back, whatever, because they furloughed him because they weren't letting. He worked in restaurant. They wouldn't let restaurants open at the time. So his drug of choice was alcohol. And when I say alcohol, he wasn't sitting around drinking Michelob Ultra. He was sitting around drinking gallon bottles of vodka or whiskey, which is a harder alcohol, we know. So, but just in that short amount of time, we knew he had a problem, but trying to talk to him about it was very difficult because he didn't want to hear it. But it was, like I told you before we started recording, it was a recipe for disaster for TJ. And in a 6 to 8 month period, it killed him. And the fact that he had that much time to sit inside of his apartment and do nothing but drink, play video games or whatever, and just drink and wake up and go and drink. There's a story, I think I mentioned this the first time we talked about TJ on the show, is that the coroner told my mom he knew TJ because the coroner worked part-time at the liquor store that TJ would go visit, pick up his liquor. So he was always very nice. So he knew TJ well because he was at the liquor store quite a bit. To me, 6 to 8 months is not a long time. When I say alcohol over a long period of time can kill you or shorten your life, but with methamphetamine, 15 years is a long time to be on a drug like methamphetamine. That's a drug that, I'll still drink some beer from time to time, but I enjoy a good cold beer. But the methamphetamine was always something that was very terrifying to me. I was always scared of it.
Yeah.
I lived in Northwest Arkansas for the longest time, and methamphetamine was an epidemic there as well. And there was a lot of arrests and a lot of people that were dying from it. But I'm glad it scared me. I'm glad it's something I never got into because I don't know that I've got an addictive personality, but the way people describe methamphetamine, it sounds like you can get hooked on it pretty easily.
Yeah, so meth is it's a fun one. I definitely so I don't regret anything that I've done. And when I say things like it was fun, I had the time of my life, and because I will say that, and it's not a lie. I did have a lot of fun. It is highly addictive. And like I said, that first time I used it, I was instantly addicted. And a lot of that is because of the energy situation, but also obviously how it affects the brain. So meth does change who you are as a person. It changes a lot about you, especially when used long term. So I'm now back to who I should be, my genuine self. But when I was on meth, I was a completely different person. I wasn't the same. I didn't look the same. I was a picker. So my skin is like really nice now. And that's not normal after somebody's used meth for 15 years because we would pick, but I really contribute that to eating real food and getting healthy. I think really helped my skin recover. Like I said, I didn't get really skinny because I would also binge eat sugar when I was coming off of the meth. And so that kept me gaining weight due to my diabetes. But there's some people, so I had seen people get on meth and have it take them out within a couple years, and then there's some of us who were on it long term and we recovered. I know people that have been on it now and are still struggling for 30 years or more that are still alive but not healthy. So nowadays it also has a lot to do with the fentanyl. So nowadays you can't really find meth without fentanyl, and people are dying the first time they try it. When I was using actively, fentanyl wasn't really a thing. It wasn't on the scene and we didn't have to worry about it nearly as much. But yeah, it's pretty crazy what's happening. Now, it's funny that you mentioned Arkansas. So at one point in the height of my addiction, I ran away to BB, Arkansas with a couple of Southern boys on meth. My mom was so mad at me. She had to fly me home because it was turning into a very dangerous situation. I got in a lot of trouble.
I know BB, Arkansas. That's funny. I had a friend, I won't mention her by name, but there was a time when I knew she was on it, or I didn't know she was on it. The thing about me, I was so naive to all that. There was people around me that were on it, and I had no idea. I was so ignorant to meth and its effects on people, and I hadn't seen her in a while. She stopped by my job and just to say hi one night and just to kind of catch up. Then we connected again later on, and then she asked me to borrow her truck. Or borrow my truck, I'm sorry. But I didn't see that truck for 2 days. And whoever she was running around with left a bunch of her stuff in the back of my truck. My friend ended up leaving her behind. And she goes, "Hey, I know where your truck's at. Do you know, can we go get it?" And I was like, "My spare keys are at work. If you want to come pick me up, we'll go pick up my spare keys and go get the truck." I said, by the way, where the hell is my truck?" I was furious.
That's what we do. And we don't mean and it blows my mind now to think about it because I would be losing my shit if somebody did that to me. But the amount of times that I would take my mom's car and not come home for a week, my mom's dog, it was a senior dog and was dying. And I'm a dog mom. I love animals. It blows my mind now to think. And she's like, "Yeah, I need to get the dog to the vet." And then 2 days later, I bring the car home. Meth really does alter your brain in a crazy way.
Yeah. Long story short, I finally got my truck back. I was done to please it. I didn't talk to her for the longest time. And it's somebody I went to church with for years too. And that was a long time ago. She's not that way anymore. She's off of it now. She's married and doing very well with her life. But it was, at the time, like I said, I was so ignorant, so naive to what was going on around me. But meth was a big problem in Northwest Arkansas. It may still be. I don't know. But I live in Tennessee now. But it was really bad. And I had coworkers. I had no idea they were on it. And coworkers, they were making this stuff at work. They were making meth at work. I had no idea.
Oh no!
And that's how clueless I was to the situation of meth. And so, when I heard about it, I was like, that sounds dangerous. It doesn't sound like something you should be doing yourself. And I was always terrified of it. I'd smoked pot in the past. Marijuana never really scared me. Alcohol never really scared me. But methamphetamine terrified me.
That's good. It needs to terrify more people.
It should. Yeah, it should, because it should be. I think, and I wonder sometimes if it's people who just think, well, it's not going to affect me that way. If they think that they can overcome a lot of it on their own with some kind of willpower or something. I don't know. Like I said, I'm ignorant. I'm still ignorant to it, but I know it exists.
Yeah.
At the time, I wasn't really aware that it was around me as much as it was.
Well, yeah, and then you have people that are successful and they're like, "I just want to party for the weekend. I can handle it," and things like that. And, I've seen many people like that just dabble around a little bit. But then people like the active addicts like I was, and like the people I was around, you know, we will take somebody who's just going to do it sometimes on the weekend and destroy their life and bring them down with us because they're vulnerable. They're easy. They think they have control over it. And I think that's a big misconception. When somebody's like, oh, yeah, I've got control over this, no big deal, I'm going to just do it on the weekend. But yeah, you know, when we're like, okay, so, you know, this person thinks that they have control, but they need me in order to get what they need. And then slowly but surely we will, you know, nitpick at that person until they're just in the same level of addiction as the rest of us.
So do you think that there's people that with a drug like methamphetamine, do you think there's people that can dabble in it and then leave it alone, or is it something that's going to get a hold of them, even if they're just dabbling in it?
So if the drug itself doesn't get a hold of them, then the people involved in that drug will.
Okay.
And that's going to be their downfall.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that because I know. Well, I don't know them now, but I've known in the past recreational cocaine users. You know, there's, you know, it's something to go party on. That's another drug that I never got interested in. You know, acid was nothing I was ever interested in because I was like, that doesn't sound safe either. Marijuana, like I said, marijuana never scared me because it grew out of the ground. All this other stuff, it had to be made by man, and it just doesn't. If a human being is doing it, I'm like, there's got to be something wrong with it, or something terribly could go wrong. Something bad could go wrong with it. Where like with marijuana, it grows out of the ground. But it's there also, you mentioned fentanyl. I've heard now that they're putting fentanyl in marijuana. I mean, if people are smoking pot, they got to be careful where they're getting their pot from too.
Yeah, see, that one blows my mind and makes me really uneasy because it is true, and it sucks. So I have always been pro pot. Even to this day in my recovery, I am pro pot. And that's because pot has saved my life a few times. I used pot when I quit the meth. I didn't go into a treatment center. I didn't get caught. I didn't go to prison. You know, instead, I made this huge choice to change my life. And I was, you know, the way I was raised was like, hey, you know, like we don't really need to be too afraid of pot. Just, don't get crazy with it. Don't be a stupid stoner. And when I came off the meth, I smoked a lot of pot. And then all of a sudden, when I was starting to function more, I was smoking less and less pot. It didn't lead me to it, but it led me out of that hard drug addiction. And then when I quit smoking cigarettes, I did the same thing and then slowly tapered off the pot without even trying. And then the alcohol. So that's going to be another one for you. I drank myself into the hospital with pancreatitis at one point. And then that was drinking vodka because vodka is keto. So why not? Right. At least it's not meth. That was my way of thinking. And I don't drink it all now. I'm completely sober from the alcohol too. But yeah, I did that as well. And the pot, when I quit drinking, when I got out of the hospital, I was smoking pot to help with the alcohol cravings. And now I don't really smoke at all.
That's interesting. TJ was in the hospital for 3 or 4 times for alcohol. And it never woke him up. The last time he was in the hospital, I called my mom and I talked to her and she goes, "You want to talk to him?" I was like, "Yeah," because she was there with him. But he had gotten so bad that when he was coming down from it, he was attacking my mom. They had to, while he was in the hospital bed, it's a dangerous drug if you overuse it. But when I talked to him on the phone, he was crying. And I was like, finally, he's going to wake up, and this is it. He's going to get his shit together, so to speak. And he just never did. And like I said, with the whole thing with the COVID stuff, it really it was a bad situation for a lot of people, drugs and alcohol, and he was one of them. Which kind of leads me to my next question, because you said you used pot to get off of it. TJ he didn't like marijuana because he said it made him so anxious. It gave him anxiety for some reason, so he just stuck to alcohol. Now, if pot was able to help you come off of these other drugs, what point, because you obviously, it sounds like you had an awakening, that something woke you up at one time, and you're like, okay, I've got to stop doing this or I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
At what point in your life was it? What was it? Was there one single thing, or was there a lot of things that may have woke you up to the fact that I got to get off of this or I'm going to die?
So I was kind of facing that I was going to kill myself with it for a couple of years before actually deciding that I was going to quit. I knew that I had diabetes. That was kind of a massive factor. I had been diagnosed in active addiction at 24, but we suspect I'd been diabetic since like 12 or early teen years. And I was starting to really wonder about that because I was getting so big. I was, I used meth every single day. I was a very, very heavy, consistent user. And the fact that I was still gaining weight was like, dang. So, my diabetes must really be kind of messed up right now. And of course, while eating like crap. And so my husband, that's a fascinating subject. I didn't want him deported. So my husband is from England, and he had a social security number. He was here legally. He was doing everything right. And he ended up getting a divorce from his first wife. And he failed to file one piece of paper to release the conditions of the green card. So he was paying into our tax system. They knew exactly where he was at, but he was not a citizen of the United States, and he needed to get his paperwork sorted out. So if he would have been caught with meth or associated with meth because of his immigration status, that would have been it. He would have never, he would have been deported immediately. He could have never come back. It would have completely destroyed his life. And that was starting to freak me out because our drug dealer at the time was going in and out of jail, and he would go to my husband whenever he would get out of jail, and he was having like my husband drive his car and he would drive my car, so it was starting to get a little too sketchy for my comfort, and I didn't want to destroy his life. And I started to kind of feel like I had the will to live. My mom played a part. So my mom, when I was heavy into it, she was like, I just can't be around you when you're like this. And I was really starting to miss having her in my life. It was like 5 years. It was very minimal contact. And I didn't see her, and I knew that I wasn't welcome in her home. And when I was in that active addiction like that. And so that all three of those things together just kind of put me in a place where I was like, well, damn, what am I going to do? Am I going to die, lose my mom, and lose the man that I love? Or am I going to get my shit together?
And here you are. Hey, folks, do you like salsa? I love salsa. I have come up with a fire recipe, and we have been shipping this homemade salsa all across the country. If you like salsa and want a cool way to support the project and spread the message of no king but Christ, then holler at us. You can reach us at badromansalsa@gmail.com or visit the official Bad Roman Salsa Facebook page and message us there. Thank y'all so much for your continued support. Now let's get back to the show. So you keep bringing up like sugar. I'll say this: sugar is one of my weak points. I don't eat a lot of. That's one thing I'm intentional about trying to stay away from. But there's times where I'm like, you know what, I want a Snickers. My problem is when I go so long without any sugar, because I'm not like full on keto, and I want to talk to you about that here a little bit too. I'm not full on keto, but there's something about sugar where if I stay off of it long enough or stay away from it long enough, when I do finally eat a piece of candy, I will eat a lot of pieces of candy.
Yeah. The
biggest problem I have is a cherry sour. And I'll get a 2 or 3 bags of those little small bags of cherry sours. And if I don't take them to work with me, if I don't give them away to my coworkers, I will sit there and go through two or 3 bags of cherry sours. When I first moved to Tennessee, one thing our job does, they have you to keep your insurance rates down. It's called and keep from getting a surcharge. They'll have you go to your doctor, and they'll just do blood work to see just to make sure everything's working. They'll give you a $300 Amazon gift card for doing so. Well, when I first got here, the first doctor I went to see, they said I was borderline diabetic. And I probably just finished off a bag of cherry sours before I went and saw the doctor. So it was, but when he told me that, he said, you gotta stay out of the fast food lane. If you're going to drink beer, drink some wine or something instead. Stay away from carbs. And I did. And I was probably about 300 pounds at this time. When I stayed away from all that, I would drink water and black coffee, stay away from bread, stay away from sugar. And I dropped 50 pounds pretty quick. Now, there's still something about sugar that I can't quite let go of too, but I can't give it up completely because I got a sweet tooth that'll go crazy sometimes. But is there like an alternative, like with fruit? Like I try to eat like strawberries and stuff like that, and I don't know if that's something that's keto friendly or not. But I try to eat some kind of, but I know there's sugar in fruit as well.
So I think it really depends on the person. So even though my roots are in keto, I've been on this journey for a decade. So I have evolved, I have grown, I've changed as I've learned. So especially in my situation when I just started out, so an addict who's in active addiction will go to sugar when they're coming down or feeling off or just need to eat because it hits the same receptors as those drugs. So that's why, you know, for example, you struggle with the cherry sours and how you'll just keep eating the candy. It's the same concept as a drug addiction. You're hitting those same receptors in your brain. You're getting that same rush, but you're getting it from sugar. And with those cherry sours, that's like red dye number 40. Like, that's the worst. Don't even do that. You know better. You know, but it hits the same receptors. And so that's why the two addictions kind of go hand in hand. But even for somebody like you who has never dabbled in all of these hard drugs, you still have that sugar addiction, and it has that same hold on you that, you know, the drugs would on us drug addicts. And then giving up the sugar is even harder because it's socially acceptable. You know, when it comes down to it, the sugar was harder than the meth because people started looking at me funny when I quit eating candy, but they praised me when I quit doing drugs. So that does add another layer of difficulty. Now, in terms of what's like keto and what's not keto, it depends on who you ask. Like, technically, fruit is not keto, but if you're not diabetic and you're not having to worry about the massive blood sugar spikes, if it's going to come down to eating an orange or a Snickers, eat that orange. Like, that came from the earth, you know, really focus on the real whole foods. If you're diabetic and you're trying to gain control over your blood sugar, then testing is going to be really important. And especially, like, I decided to go the completely unmedicated route when I started. So when you're doing that, you got to be super strict. And in cases like that, going for the berries instead of the oranges is going to be the more logical approach because they are much lower carb. But it's still going to keep your addiction somewhat alive. The fructose can still, especially if you have fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is driven by fructose in high amounts. Obviously more like the high fructose corn syrup than the fruit. But if you're trying to change your diet and you have fatty liver and you start eating a whole bunch of fruit every day, then you're not doing yourself any favors.
Okay. Well, you'll be happy to know that I haven't had a cherry sour in a while. I have not touched a cherry sour in a while. So just so you know.
Good job.
But those were hard for me to give up. And now I just avoid the candy aisle when I go to the gas station or something. I got to walk in there and get something else. So I just don't walk down the candy aisle. The problem is, well, they've changed it at work now too, but there for a while they had a bunch of the candy and stuff on the in the stack area where you could buy it, but they've taken it off, something to do with corporate. But have you heard of that the Yucca app, YUKA? Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it. I've seen buzz about it, but I haven't used it myself yet.
It's made me a maniac, is what it's done. I'll stand in the grocery store and I'll be scanning these barcodes and see if this is okay for me to buy. And we know most of the stuff, and especially in America, the grocery stores is a bunch of garbage.
Yes.
You should stay away from it. But if this Yucca app, there's an option on there where you could scan a barcode on a product that you want to buy. And it'll rate it from 0 to 100, 100 being the best. And there were some things that I was drinking or putting into my body that would be rated a 0, and I had no idea that these things were bad. And so it's pretty cool with that. Now, like I said, the problem is I'm standing inside of a grocery store aisle, scanning different products to see what's acceptable to take home and eat. And people were trying to get around me. And like I said, it's made me a maniac. So I started just ordering. I just started this the other day too. I've got a subscription to Wild Pastures where I'm getting my meat from them instead of getting meat from the grocery store.
Yeah, that's who I order from too. Shout out to Wild Pastures.
I just got my first order the other day, but because I started noticing too would go to like Kroger, and I haven't frequented Walmart very much at all in the past few years, but like Kroger going and getting, if you want to buy some hamburger meat, I was like, there's something wrong with this, and I can't figure out what it is. And I've heard other people talk about it. It's kind of stringy. Then I found out that it might not be coming from the same cow. It's probably going, several different cows are being put into it. That's why I like Copperhead Hill Farms so much, because they're very intentional about where you get your beef and your milk and stuff like that. Getting this meat from them has been is pretty cool, and it's not really that much more expensive than going to the grocery store and buying their meat these days.
Not at all. And if you compare it to grass-fed, grass-finished, and pastured meat in the grocery store, Wild Pastures is actually cheaper than the grocery store.
Okay, yeah. So they've got like at Kroger, they'll have like this grass-fed beef stuff, and if you use the Yucca app to scan it, it doesn't rate it very high. So I don't know what they're doing to it. At the food that they're getting at the grocery store, I don't know what they're doing to it. I also heard too, a lot of the foods that are in American grocery stores would be deemed illegal in other countries because of the stuff they're putting in it.
Yeah, the BBC just did a whole they did like a little special presentation because some shops in London were literally just raided, and they took all the American stuff out of the shops that had made its way to London.
Really?
Yeah, that you can find that info on the BBC. They did a special report on it. Just like put in Google that the London shops got raided for American treats or snacks.
Really? No, I did not know that. See, that's interesting too, because there are a lot of people are excited about this Kennedy guy that Trump's going to have in his cabinet. He's going to be make America healthy again or something.
Yeah.
And my fear is that, like, I'm all about being healthy and getting people being intentional about their health. My problem is when you got the government involved with it. I don't know where you land on politics. We don't necessarily get into that, but when it comes to like the government getting involved in my personal life or what I'm eating, that's going to raise some red flags for me. Okay, so I don't need anybody telling me how to do this. I can figure this out on my own. I think it's better to go to podcasts and listen to people who are independent talk about this and go through or get your advice from the government. That never ends well, in my opinion.
No, and like he has great ideas. The things that I've seen and I've heard, I'm not big on politics at all, and to each their own. I don't have a side that I pick. I'm anti-government. So a very non-biased opinion. He has some amazing ideas as far as what he talks about and what he wants to do. But with how far down our country has went with all of this stuff, and the fact that we have big pharma, we have big medicine, we have big food companies, is one guy going to make it long enough to implement all of these things that are going to bring these things down? Like, I'm scared for him. I am. If he can actually step in and implement some of the amazing things that he's saying, that's awesome. Like, I love that for our country, but I don't know. I'm afraid for him. Genuinely afraid.
Like for his safety?
Yeah.
Like he could be
100%.
Okay.
Because like look at this country. I mean, in big food, big pharma, he is gonna go after two of the biggest profiting, structures. Like that's where America makes its money, literally. And it doesn't mean that I agree with it. I'm completely against it. I do everything the exact opposite of what they recommend, and I'm a coach full time. That's what I do. And I bring people out of staying in that trap. I help them find their way, and I teach them how to, get healthy without using big pharma and without being a victim of the big food companies, and they don't like people like us that are trying to make people healthy. They don't like it at all.
Well, if you keep people sick, you're going to keep them dependent. And I think we know that we saw that a lot during COVID days, but my issue with him and the government is that I'm so cynical when it comes to them that I just don't believe them. Even if he's saying all these things, it all seems like political theater to me, where he might be doing it himself. But to me, it's just a way to get into power. And so I just don't believe it. And even if the things do come about, I still don't think it's the government's job to take care of us. I think it's up to us to take care of ourselves.
Definitely.
And I certainly do not want a government that is well known for mass murder to try to I don't want them taking care of me. You know what I mean? So it's another thing too. Somebody told me during when all that COVID stuff first started happening, this guy at work, he's no longer there, but he goes, well, it's their job to take care of us. I said, no, it's not.
No.
And even if it was, I don't trust them with my own health. And this was way before we knew anything was going on with COVID. I mean, so this was like very early on. I said, I don't need them telling me how to live my life. Hey, folks. We have set up a very simple way to donate to the Bad Roman Project through spotfund.com. Just go to SpotFund and search No King But Christ. This has become necessary to continue to provide a quality podcast and keep production costs down as well. Just $5 or $10 a month will go a long way in helping us keep this project going and continue spreading the very basic message of No King But Christ. So if you like what we were doing and can find it within your budget, go to spotfund.com and search No King But Christ, and you can set up monthly donations or even donate one time. Any and all donations help more than you know, and as always, any donations above production costs will go directly to charities in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank y'all so much. Now back to the show. But I want to talk to you too also about Hack Your Health, and because when I come across folks like you who are working to help other people get their health back into their own hands and to taking care of themselves instead of relying on somebody else, I think that's important. And I like talking about this on the show too, because even, you know where we are with the Bad Roman. It's a Christian anarchy. You told me before when we were setting this up that, you don't really have any faith in any religion. And that's not why I wanted to talk to you about it, but I wanted to talk to you because I think it's important for Christians to take their own health seriously. I mean, it's in the Bible that we're supposed to take care of ourselves. The body, it's a temple. You're supposed to take care of your body. And I think there's a lot of Christians who just don't do that. And so talk to us a little bit about Hack Your Health and what your goals with that are. And how did that get started? Did it kind of get started after you kind of got addicted to your own health?
Yeah, so Hack Your Health is a lot of fun. And I love this topic, by the way. And I love that you're promoting Christians getting healthy instead of the good old, well, my health is in God's hands. Like I was taught to love and respect God, and I definitely do. There is something else out there. I just don't know in what capacity that looks like for me personally. But I do know, God is out there, but he's not responsible for our health. So that's my religious stance. Hack Your Health is, it used to be, so Hack Your Health is actually an event, and also Hack Your Health Coaching is who I coach for and am in charge of that coaching program. The event started, I think the first one was back in 2017, if I'm remembering correctly. And it was then called KetoCon, and it was in Austin, Texas. And this all started with keto. So that's our roots, definitely, is keto. And I think our original group was actually called Keto Evangelist. And a lot of people were freaked out because they thought that we were trying to turn keto like in religion because of the Keto Evangelist name. And so we ended up getting away from that name years ago, but that was the OG of it. That's how it was built. And we started with this big conference where we brought in speakers about, keto focused back then. And there was vendors, and we had an amazing turnout. And so we've just been growing like every year since then. So we rebranded to Hack Your Health because instead of being hyper focused on just the ketogenic diet, we wanted to be more encompassing of an overall healthy lifestyle. So, as we grew and we learned, the company has grown as well, that like, hey, if a metabolically healthy person is going to be low carb instead of keto, then why should we pick on that sort of thing? And the original event, the vendors were hyper focused like around food. And so there was a whole bunch of like keto junk food, keto snacks, It was a lot of fun, but as the event grew, they started bringing in vendors that had more to do with like biohacking. And then we all kind of started talking about biohacking, and it became amazing. So that's how Hack Your Health was born, was through just the growth of KetoCon into encompassing real whole food lifestyles and then biohacking and the coaching program. So because it's the same company, we ended up rebranding that to Hack Your Health Coaching. So I have a small team. There is me and Tammy and Heather, and we coach private. So Tammy and Heather are keto carnivore focused. Heather is super into body recomposition, yoga, like all of the fun stuff. Tammy, she's really into more of the ancestral, holistic roots. Also super awesome with aromatherapy. And I kind of really expanded out. So I got certified in integrative medicine for PTSD and complex trauma. And I did that specifically because a lot of recovered addicts and trauma victims are really attracted to me for getting help because I've been there. You know, you don't come out of 15 years of meth without some trauma. And I wanted to be able to help them properly. So I've done that. And then I got certified with SSRP for peptides because I think peptides are amazing and powerful. That's a newer rabbit hole that I've gotten into. But basically, I want to support anybody who wants to give up eating the standard American diet and take control over their health. And that's my focus. I'm like, I don't care what your diet label is. Let's just get you healthy.
No, I think that's amazing. And I think it's important, you know, and I've said this on the show before maybe I've said it on the show. I don't, I've said it in private conversation, but it was, I don't know how much you listen to podcasts. Sometimes I'll listen to Rogan, and he was talking about kind of his diet. Joe Rogan, I was talking about his diet a little bit, and he said something about meat, eggs, cheese, and fruit. But I'm like, I was like, I think I can do that. So I really don't eat a whole lot of bread anymore. I'm not like a strict diet guy, but I pay attention to it enough to know that I shouldn't be eating certain things. But I'm really big on, I eat a lot of eggs. I mean, I eat eggs probably 3 times a day. You know, and it's a lot of things too that we've been lied to from the government about what we're eating and what we should be eating. And when you start really kind of making your own health intentional, then you start realizing that they've not been telling us the truth about this stuff. So eating eggs is actually a healthy thing to be doing.
Yeah, eggs are amazing. I mean, if you think about it, eggs have all of the building blocks to create an entire life. And even though, you know, humans and chickens might not have the same body composition, we are both life, and we both need all of those vitamins, and we need all of those minerals, and we need that cholesterol. Cholesterol is super important. Y'all eat your egg yolks. Like, quit doing the egg white protein thing. Yeah, eggs are power food, really.
Yeah, I've never understood not eating the yolks. I think it's the best part of the egg, actually. Even when I thought they were bad for me, I was eating them all the time. I thought they were the best part of the egg. Have you ever had duck eggs?
Yeah, I've had duck eggs. They're pretty good. And quail egg, I also like. So pickled quail eggs are kind of awesome. Cute little tiny thing.
I've never had pickled quail eggs, but I have had duck eggs. They're really good. I've got some friends who have their own duck farm, and I've had them send me some eggs. They're in Missouri, and I'd never had a duck egg before, and they sent me some. They're tasty. Very Perry ducks, if anybody's curious who it is. Yeah. So anyway, if somebody is when they first come to you and they want to become intentional about their health, what's the first thing you tell them? Is it diet, exercise, or all or both, or is it just starting with diet and then maybe get into exercise? Because to me, from what I understand, diet is probably the most difficult part of it. Now, as much as I hate going to the gym, I actually enjoy how I feel when I leave the gym. But the hardest part for me was the change in the diet, or being more intentional about my diet, because like I was talking about earlier, I've got a sweet tooth that I'm going nuts and I want a Snickers sometimes. But if I just keep intentional about what I'm eating, I've noticed I feel better. And then the next day, if I do have a bad day and I'm eating a bunch of sugar, the next day I feel like shit. I'm not going to lie. But I know when over a few day period, if I'm eating right or eating the way I think I should be eating, I feel so much better. My head's clear. I'm not in a fog. But if I eat something like that, it puts my brain in a fog. Now, eating more intentionally, because I feel better throughout the day. You know, working as many hours as I do, I think it's important to have that kind of natural energy, not some kind of energy you're going to get from sugar or caffeine. But I do like some black coffee too. So, what's the first thing you would tell somebody when they come to you to kind of get their health back right, be intentional about it?
So we definitely start with the nutrition. For those who, if I get somebody whose nutrition is not dialed in and they're hyper focusing on exercise, that kind of cues me that maybe they have a little bit of food addiction that we need to address, because nutrition is going to be the core. What we're putting into our bodies always is going to come first. What we're consuming is most important for overall health. and, weight loss journeys. Obviously we're not meant to be sedentary, and we should be getting up and moving. But a lot of people, when they come to me, especially women who have been struggling for years, are so obese that it's painful for them to be up too long. It's painful for them to be working out. So we start with nutrition. We lower the inflammation. We get rid of the aches and the pains, and get people feeling good enough to actually want to get up. So always start with nutrition.
After nutrition, do you get into exercise? How much time do you spend exercising? Because my biggest issue with exercise is if I've got to go after work, that's the only time I can find to do it. But when you get to work 6 or 7 nights a week, sometimes I just want to go home and eat some eggs and go to bed, but I'm up on my feet all the time. And I've had doctors tell me too that working a 10-hour shift's not really exercise. You need to go get your heart rate up. You need to go lift weights. You got to, and I like the way I feel when I get done. Don't get me wrong. It's just the motivation to get there. That's my issue, to try to get there after working 6 or 7 nights a week, 10-hour shifts, 11-hour shifts. Burnout's a thing. And when you get to a point where you're like, I just want to go home and go to bed, and then get back up and go back to work.
So, I agree, like, both with your point of view on it and also the doctors. The doctors aren't wrong on that, but they also need to consider the shifts that you are working and how busy you really are, that if you were to try and do that every night, you would be hurting yourself more than helping yourself. It wouldn't be terrible to start off with, okay, so I'm going to make this one night in my work week where I'm going to go to the gym. Make that a habit. Do it consistently for a few months, and then be like, okay, I'm going to add in another night. And, to a lot of people, that's like, oh, well, that's just one night a week. That's nothing. But when you're bargaining with yourself constantly, and you're going very inconsistently, and you're not even going once a week, that once a week is a big deal. And that is literally the base of you building that habit. So once you have that down and you're like, yeah, I like this once a week thing, then you can make it twice a week, and it's funny because it goes full circle. You'll be like, yeah, I feel so great after this once a week. You add twice a week and you're like, well, now I'm back to being miserable because I'm doing it again. But you keep it at that twice a week instead of trying to increase it, and you build that habit, and then suddenly you're feeling good about it. Now, because you're working long shifts, 6 to 7 days a week, like, in my opinion, I wouldn't have you going to work out more than 3 times a week until that changes, because sleep is also important. Our body builds and repairs in our sleep. So if you're cutting into too much of your sleep to work out, you're not getting the proper rest for your body to actually rebuild any of those tissues. And that's not going to be helpful at all.
Yes, I've had a guy on the show that we talked about this a little bit too. He said if you're not getting proper sleep, he said you could be working out 7 days a week. He said if you're not getting proper sleep, you're not doing your body any good, because you're not giving it your body enough time to rest and, like you just said, rebuild itself. I love these conversations too, because it gets me to thinking about, I got it that once a week I think I could do, and it's not that like I'm not going to the gym, but it's a very inconsistent right now because we're so busy at work. When I'm kind of slower at work and I got more time, I'm going 3 or 4 times a week. But I've also noticed too, and I'll say this for anybody listening, if you're in that habit of going, it changes your diet too. I'm more focused on my diet when I know that I'm exercising. I don't know what it is. I'll go to the gym. When I come home, I don't want to eat some garbage. I want to eat something, some meat and eggs and some cheese, and it keeps me away from sugar. It keeps me away from a lot of things I should be putting in my body. It's just something, maybe it's just how my brain works. I don't know, but it's just, if I'm not exercising, then my diet suffers. It happens every time. And the only way for me to fix that is to go to the gym.
So have you ever read the book Atomic Habits?
No, I haven't.
Atomic Habits is a fantastic book. It talks about habit stacking, and that's kind of what you're describing. You get going with one healthy habit, and it leads to more healthy habits. Now, I'm not sure if he addresses this in the book, and if not, he really should. But habits like that go in the opposite direction as well. Once you start creating bad habits, you start stacking those bad habits, So, okay, I'm not going to the gym, and now I'm not eating right. And then suddenly you're not drinking as much water, and and then the sleep is suffering. It's crazy. So we can stack habits up and have good ones, or we can go the opposite direction and we start stacking bad habits instead.
100%. Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe it's not just me. Maybe that's something that could work for everybody.
It's not. You're a human. Congratulations.
Yeah. You said something, I think, before we started recording about calling it an adulting, and I'm kind of over that too. So not saying that I don't want to be an adult or a human, but I want to go back to being a kid sometimes.
Yeah, when it was easy and there was no worries in the world.
Right. We thought there were worries, but there actually wasn't. It's funny, when I was a kid, I would refuse naps, and now I look forward to naps. I look forward to sleep. It's one of my favorite things to do these days, is get some rest.
Amazing how that happens, right? In my bedtime when I was a kid, I hated it. I hated having to be in bed by 8:30, and now I'm like trying to go to bed at 8.
Oh, let me ask you this before you plug your stuff. I want to ask you this because I've noticed I have a habit of going on Facebook pages and reading like the comment section. And I've noticed you've got people that like to give you pushback and troll. I don't necessarily see you push back with them a whole lot. Do you kind of let the conversation work itself out with other people? Because that's what I do with the Bad Roman page. I let the conversation push back with each other, and they can work it out themselves. Where I see other, like one of my favorite Facebook pages is Liberty Minds, and I had recorded with him last night, where they will interact with the people pushing back with them quite a bit. And I don't know if it's to push algorithms or not, but I kind of like it when the conversation works itself out, where I don't have to spend time on social media arguing with people I will never meet in my life.
So it depends on the post and the subject, and also how busy I am, really. So if I make a post and I know it's controversial, if I see, so my notifications, if I see a name that is somebody that I know, care about, agree with, I'll go see what they had to say on it. If it's getting a whole bunch of notifications, then I'll go see what's going on. Every now and then, if I'm like, I got a moment and somebody's like being absolutely ridiculous, then I'll go ahead and comment back to them, and we really will get going for half a second. But I do eventually just like give up and let them go for it, and you'll see me on there, especially with the vegans who come at the keto page. Let me just say that when I'm talking about this, you will never catch me on a vegan's page telling them anything about their diet, what they're doing wrong. I will not go to somebody else's page and try to tell them. They come to mine. They are on them like crazy. They keep, meat is murder, all their vegan agendas, and I just let them go for it. They are the most hateful people on my page. And so I quit reading the comments. I'm like, whatever, y'all just like have fun. And then the other followers, the low carb people, the keto people, they like to go and argue with the vegan people. And I get messages from people all the time. They're like, hey, I hope you don't mind me engaging these people. And I'm like, I honestly don't. Like, have fun. It's just that I do tell people, don't let them get to you. Because that's the thing, is if you get on here and all the hate that they're spewing in the comment section on my page is affecting your mental or emotional health negatively, that's not okay. And that's when you need to draw the line, because it does get pretty crazy out there sometimes.
Yeah, for real. That's it. It has to be something really kind of, if somebody's being obnoxious to the point that they're bullying other people, I'll get on and say something. 'Cause a lot of the times it handles itself. The comment section handles itself. I've only had in the 5 years that we've been doing it, I've only had to block one person off that page, and the only reason I did that, and I'm not normally that type of person. I don't normally block anybody. I usually get blocked quite a bit, but I don't normally block anybody. But I had to block somebody not too long ago because it wasn't anything he was saying, because he was a massive troll. But I kind of just used it to our advantage because he was pushing algorithms. Our page was growing, and
yeah.
But I had to block him because he started taking our brand and putting it on memes, misrepresenting the Bad Roman. And that's when I drew the line. I told him, I said, listen, you keep doing that, I'm gonna have to block you off the page. I said, that's where my line is crossed, is when you start taking our brand and misrepresenting what the Bad Roman was about and putting it on memes. You're not going to do that on this page. And he wouldn't stop. So I finally just had to block him.
Yeah. And that's the best thing to do when they start attacking your brand. I have some boundaries. So I ended up blocking one person. It was a vegan person, and they were literally becoming so obsessed that they called the place of employment of somebody they were arguing with in the comment section. She worked with children, and this person was insistent that this woman should not work with children because she eats meat. And she called their place of employment. So that person was blocked. Anything like that, I'm like, no, we're not going to do this. And every now and then they decide to come at my husband, who is on social media, but he's not on social media. Like, he's not posting, he's not engaging, he scrolls through. And I do that because my Keto Wang page is not his disaster. Like I might be his disaster, but my page is not. So when people try to come at him, I will block them for that. And then just general nonsense is, so I'll let people argue, but if they get a little bit too crazy, then I definitely am like, okay, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, I'm over
I don't know
it.
what's wrong with people.
But there's one guy, the bearded vegan. Wherever you are, I miss you, the bearded vegan. He was funny. You'll probably never hear this, but he was funny.
You probably won't ever hear it. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with people where they got to spend so much time, especially calling somebody's place of work. I mean, that's insanity, man. And I don't understand how people can behave that way, or why you would want to behave that way. But that's neither here nor there. That could be a whole other topic. But I don't want to keep you too much longer. But why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff, your Facebook, your social media, and wherever they can find you, reach out to you to if they want some guidance, advice on getting their health back in line like it should be. Whether you're Christian or not, listen to this show. I mean, everybody, it's a good idea to be healthy. You want to be here around as long as you can be. And I think being intentional about your health is very important and leading you to a longer life.
Yeah, so health is amazing, and not only for yourself, but for the ones that you love. We should also want to be healthy so that we're not becoming a burden to those who love us, because if you continue to make yourself sick, eventually you end up having to be cared for. It's nice to want to grow old with somebody in a partnership rather than a caregiving situation. So that's something I like to remind people of, that, a lot of people, especially my generation, aren't really thinking about yet. But we need to be, because really we're building the foundation for old age now. So I am, my regular profile is Elaina Wang, and Wang, W-A-N-G, super fascinating. If you look it up on Facebook, you're going to get the Asian people, which is fine, the last name. But if you go to the cities and search Las Vegas, because that's where I'm at, then it pops up with me. Keto Wang is my page. That is an absolute disaster. If you ever want to go argue with people, that's your place. I do a lot of what I call shit posting there, where I just post all of the controversial memes, but they are things that I agree with and I believe in. If I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't post it. And then I am also in some bigger groups. So there's Hack Your Health Nutrition. And I'm there all the time helping people with questions. Hack Your Health Fitness for the fitness people, and Hack Your Health Kitchen for the recipe people. And then hackyourhealthcoaching.com is where I am for my coaching services. And I also do free 15-minute discovery calls, because I don't expect everybody to click with me. It's like, hey, let's talk it out and find out. And then, of course, our event, Hack Your Health. It's going to be in Tampa, November 2025. It's going to be epic. Lots of biohacking, real food, lots of speakers, vendors. It's amazing. And I will definitely be there.
Awesome. That sounds like a good time.
It's the best. So originally with KetoCon, it turned out to be the biggest keto event in the world.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds very interesting. I don't know if I can make it. When in 2025?
So November, I believe 14th through 16th.
Okay, so there's still plenty of time to get ready for something like that.
Yeah, and so the tickets are actually on sale right now at hackyourhealth.com. I believe it's a .com. I hope it's a .com. So the ticket prices right now are early bird pricing. They're $199. And then I have a code that's Keto Wang, and it gives $100 off of that. So you can get a full 3-day access pass for $99 right now.
Very cool. Well, keep doing what you're doing. You said that you're your page is crazy, or I don't remember what you called it, but I enjoy it, and I think it looks like it's grown quite a bit. So whatever you're doing seems to be working. Either it doesn't seem like the majority of the people that come to your page are trolls. It seems like the vast majority of them are benefiting from your work. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh yeah. Always. It's been 9 years in the making. I'm a decade in on this journey now, and I just keep growing and things keep getting better.
Good deal. Well, I will. I'm going to let you go, get back to the rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.
Well, it's good meeting with you. Thank you, Craig.
For sure. And by the way, I don't remember if I told you, but thank you for ordering some salsa from me as well. That was pretty neat. I always like the different places I get to send salsa to. So I think you were the first one in Las Vegas that I got to send some salsa to, which is pretty neat.
It's delicious. If anybody hears this part, buy the salsa. It's amazing. I love it.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, it's good with pork rinds. See, because I don't eat chips or anything. Dip the pork rinds in the salsa.
You know what? Now that you said that, I remember you posted about it with some pork rinds in the salsa. And the other day I had some pork rinds at work, and I had a jar of salsa with me on break, and I was trying it with some hot barbecue sauce or barbecue pork rinds, and tried it with that. I don't know if those are the right kind of pork rinds, but it was pretty interesting. It was pretty good. I never had it with pork rinds before.
Yeah, it gets you away from the carbs, and you still get the crunch.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, somebody told me some salsa is delicious. It's just the vehicle you're using to put it into your mouth is the problem.
Yeah. Well, and you've got to be careful with those barbecue pork rinds because of the maltodextrin and the MSG.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It seems like everything that I'm eating, I'm going to find something wrong. It sounds like you could find something wrong with it. I'm going to be completely unaware of it. Like I was naive to methamphetamine. I'm naive to a lot of things going on with the food I'm eating too.
I've been in the health space for so many years now that, that's also why I haven't used that Yucca app that you've mentioned, because it's like, you know what? I feel like I'm a walking database. I don't need to scan a barcode.
and you could probably find something wrong with that Yucca app too. Say, no, they got this wrong too. So
probably, especially if they're flagging the grass-fed beef. I'm going to be like, so what? Do they have a problem? Is it red meat or is it the fat that they're picking on? That was the first place my mind went with that.
I'd have to look it up. I can message you later, let you know, but I can't remember for sure what it was. But it was specific meat at Kroger. It wasn't something that I'd ordered from like Wild Pasture, so I don't know. It may be something to do with the fat.
Yeah, I'm super interested.
It probably was something to do with the fat. Definitely. I think because they're pretty critical of that. So yeah, turns out it's not all bad.
It's not. Eat your cows. The cows are delicious. The dairy's delicious.
All right. I'm going to let you get out of here and get back to your day. And we'll probably do this again sometime, just depending on what else comes up. But I really appreciate your time and being so upfront with everybody about your story. And because it's even starting with the addiction and it's where you're at now, I think it's important for people to understand that people can walk away from it and be more intentional about their health. And like, I love what you said a while ago, that you have your relatives or, people who love you want you around too. So, and being intentional about your health is part of that. That's one thing one takeaway I want people to have from all this, because when you do lose somebody to addiction or, eating unhealthy or whatever, it's somebody's being left behind that's hurting from it. So very good stuff.
Yeah. It's, and when you're in active addiction or active alcoholism, that's not at the forefront of your mind. So if anybody is struggling with that, and you're listening to this, maybe try to put that at the forefront of your mind, because the damage that you're doing to those who will still be here, you could prevent that by just, trying a little harder.
Trying a little harder. That's all it takes. Just a little bit of effort.
A little harder.
And once you get into it too, like you were talking about habits a while ago, once you get into it, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Especially if it becomes a good habit, I should say.
Yeah, it does get easier. I remember how hard it was when I quit. And I've quit a lot of substances in my life, and every time, it is hard. I won't say it's not hard, but it gets easier every day.
All right. Well, I think we tried to close a while ago and kept talking, so let's go ahead and close the show.
I know. I'm really good at that whole talking thing.
I am too, but it just seemed like something kept coming up that we needed to talk about again. But it's all good. It's going to be a good conversation for folks to listen to.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Bad Roman Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcasts to never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, it really helps people find us. 100% of donations are given to local charities in Memphis, Tennessee. To learn more about the Bad Roman Project and to find show notes, please visit thebadroman.com.